All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the webinar. This is the Eric Ryan Corporation and the Cloud Solutions Division. We're a division of the Eric Ryan Corporation. We're here to help out our customers and anybody else looking to get some help with digital transformation when it comes to migrating any of your on-premise equipment, hybrid equipment into the cloud. My name is Doug Hogue. I'll be doing a little bit of the presentation today and some of the narrating for you. I have Michael Baillargeon on the call with us, who's going to be our main presenter to talk about unified communications in Microsoft Teams. Mike has been around this business for a long time, and this is his specialty when it comes to unified communications and also integrations with Microsoft Teams. And then we have our CEO, Mr. Keith Venezzi. He's the CEO and founder of the Eric Ryan Corporation. He's going to kick things off for us here today to discuss a little bit about what we do on the Eric Ryan Corporation and when it comes to utility and telecommunication bill auditing. So without further ado, we'll get started for you guys here. We appreciate your time and your attendance and joining our webinar today, and look forward to seeing some of the polls and some of the answers that you guys have for them.
All right, thank you, Doug. We do appreciate everyone coming on today. I thought I would kick things off, of course, obviously thanking you for attending, but also for those that don't know much about us, just to take maybe 3 minutes and kind of go through who we are, where we've been, kind of thing. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about our history, go through some of the clients we represent, and then we'll turn it over back to Doug to go ahead and get the real theme to this started. So as far as our history, we've been around 31 years. We started out just auditing utility and telephone bills for a living, did it on a contingency basis, and started to successfully build the operation. And as people began to ask, can you do this, can you do that, we always said yes and found a way to do it. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we recognized the need that some of our customers had for various cloud-based solutions. And so we've created a division, which Doug is vice president and responsible for, to manage that and assist our clients in any way we can, from cybersecurity to anything in the cloud-based related type services. So we've been around 31 years, 95 we incorporated. Eric and Ryan are my 2 sons, so that's how the name came about. We currently have, well, the slide's actually old, we're up to 130 employees now, and you can see we're in all 50 states and even outside the US and Canada. And as I mentioned, in 2019, we launched the enterprise team, which Doug is now managing and is responsible for providing additional services beyond just the traditional telecommunications auditing and pricing. Doug? Just real quick, some of our clients, just so you know, we are a formidable player in this market. These are some of the clients that we either have represented in time or represent and continue to represent. A lot of these customers continue to stay with us and have been with us for many, many years. I'm sure a lot of these names you recognize. A lot of them we've been doing work for many, many years. So I just thought I'd throw that slide up so you can see that we are entrenched in the Fortune 1000 type companies, as well as even smaller companies. We even do support for small nonprofit organizations. So Doug, please. These are just some of the services, and I'm not going to get into them all, but really the capsule of it all is we're in just about every space of the utility and telecommunications industry. We do everything from auditing to telecom consulting to energy buying. So this is just a quick note of the services that we do provide, and I'm not going to touch on them today. Don't want to take away from the real theme behind what we want to present to you today. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Doug. Doug, if you would please, go ahead and talk about the enterprise team.
Yep. Thank you, Keith. And I'll be short and sweet here. The enterprise team and cloud solutions division of Eric Ryan Corporation was all part of evolution. We had to evolve from going through on-premise PBX, PRIs, all your legacy telecommunications equipment that were being sold, I guess you could say back in the day now, because really cloud has been around for over a decade at this point. Some customers of ours have even tried to adopt cloud at a very early stage of it, and what happened to a lot of them, not all of them, but the majority of them, was some of the stages and the steps they took weren't ideal for their business at that time. And what would happen is it put a bad taste in their mouth. It might have made them feel a little bit weary of doing it again, or maybe not even liking the cloud in general, and just being comfortable with their legacy equipment. Well, the steps to digital transformation is what I like to call it. There's 5 huge pillars in them. We can get into that into another time, because today we're here to talk about unified communications and Microsoft Teams, which is just one pillar of those 5 on that. Putting them all together is very challenging, and just your legacy IT managers, just typical jobs in the past, they had to evolve as well, like we did, to learn the cloud, learn how to migrate from an on-premise server into the cloud. Do you want somebody to manage that? Do you have enough IT staff to manage that yourself? These are some of the things you have to look at. And like I said, at a later date, we can get into the digital transformation of things. But today, I just wanted to kind of explain how we did this. And I want to go back to Keith's slide about our flagship customers. You saw some of the bigger names out there, whether they were school districts, higher education, manufacturing, anything on there. There were some big names that were thrown out there. Everybody needs help in this. IT staffs are just nationally known to be short. There's not too many companies out there that have a full team of IT staff. One guy usually is doing everything. A team of 10 can get a few things done, but they still may need a little help. And it's not until you're really talking about teams of 30 to 50 where they can handle everything on their own. And even then, there could be some steps that could be missed, knowledge gaps, and things like that. So we have staffed ourselves with experts in this field. Mike is one of them who's going to be on the call with us today. Mike has been around for a while doing these kind of things in digital transformation steps, and you guys are in for a great show to hear about unified communications and Microsoft Teams, how to better utilize that for your business. This is what the enterprise team makes up of here. We have our CEO, Keith Venezzi, Rebecca Hink, our Senior Vice President of Telecommunications, myself in the business development role, Melissa Thomas, who does our marketing sales, Jeremy Honsacker helps as an account executive with a lot of the project management, and Kendall, she's been instrumental with the social media and marketing piece of this. So we have our own little team over here that is an extension to your IT team. Outside of that, we have engineers, architects that could help you out building a plan, and make sure there are no knowledge gaps or any miscommunication parts when it comes to migrating to cloud. Before I wrap up here and hand this off to Mike, I want to show you guys everything that we're capable of doing with the Eric Ryan Cloud Division, Cloud Solutions Division. Apologize for that. We look in the network up here. Here's all your main pillars up there, but then you come down, and we'll get into this at another time should you wish to look into any of these services that we could sell. The unified communications piece is huge. That's one of the first things you look at. Most people look at. Should it be the first things to look at? I don't know. Depending on what your business solutions are like. Then there you have contact center. How are your customers reaching out to you? These are some of the questions we're asked. Are they happy? Do you know what your CSAT score is? Things like that is everything that we look into to make the customer experience better. Happy agents equal happy customers, right? Cybersecurity, do we dare talk about this? This is a huge one. People are getting hacked left and right, school districts, colleges, banks, everybody, bill pay companies, and it's shutting things down. It's a free-for-all out there right now, and securing yourself could be one of the best things that you do to keep the hackers away from your business, because they tend to go after the low-hanging fruit. So it could be something you want to contact us about as well. Cloud in general, migrating all your information from being on premise into the cloud, that's big. Internet of Things, and then anything miscellaneous on here. So if you want a copy of this card, I say you always hang it by your desk. So if you need help with something, you have one person to give a call to, and then we'll get some resources buried in there for you to help you out. So I think we have a poll up here next. I'm going to let Melissa on our team take over from here. I guess I'll click the next slide, and you guys go ahead and answer some of these questions. Let's see here. Go ahead, Melissa.
Is it not launching? Is it launched? Can you see it?
I do not.
I see it looks like it's for attendees only. So as a panelist, we might not be able to respond.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right. We'll just give it like a couple more seconds. All right. It looks like most people have voted. So let's see.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. All right, so 100% of people say that they use Microsoft Teams every day.
I don't know, Mike, you might be able to help me out on this one. That answer does not surprise me whatsoever, because I think, what is it, like 250 million some users just in the United States?
Yeah, yeah, and growing. So it's a crazy space. So
Yeah.
when COVID first hit, I think kind of going back a while, we used to have uh, two teams, right? It was like Gmail or Outlook, right? Which one was going to win that war from a desktop perspective? And now it's really in the collaboration space. Is Zoom going to win the battle of the desktop, or is Teams? And I think Zoom took an early lead when kind of COVID first hit, but I think they're plateauing a little more. And I think Microsoft Teams is just coming after them hard as ownership of that desktop. So today's topic is Microsoft Teams, the future of the PBX. I don't know if there's anybody out there who can show of hands, but the first PBX I worked on was in the early 90s. I was a Mikey punchdown tool, right? Moving extensions, moving cables and whatnot. And it was, a digital phone system back then. But, come full circle, now everything's IP based, obviously. Right around Y2K, the shift started. And then about a decade ago, the bigger shift went from on-prem IP really to cloud-based. And now we're seeing that cloud-based phone systems, or you might see the term UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service. Whenever you see that as a service, just think that's a subscription. It's not a physical ownership, it's a subscription plan. We're seeing that take over. And to put an exclamation point on that, who's heard of Gartner out there, the analysts in our space? And they do, yeah, thanks, Doug. They do that magic quadrant that suppliers pay big money to be a part of and really put themselves out there. About 3 years ago, they said we're no longer doing a magic quadrant for on-prem phone systems. The only magic quadrant we're doing now is for UCaaS systems. So what does that mean? That means that if you have an on-prem phone system, it's pretty much as good as it's ever going to be today. It's reached full maturity. All the R&D, all the feature updates, everything is going to cloud-based systems. And whether the supplier has their own cloud-based system, right? Cisco, for instance, or if they've partnered with a cloud-based system, let's take Avaya, who partners with a company called RingCentral, that's their path to the cloud. But even they understand, Mitel as well, right? Mitel just came out with just huge announcement a couple weeks ago from I worked for two companies that Mitel purchased. So over a 17-year career, Mitel bought two of my companies. But what was interesting is they had their own cloud platform, and they said, no mas, put up the white flag and said, if you want cloud, we recommend you go to RingCentral. So it's interesting. And right now, what's trending in CX, right? CX is one of those acronyms we love throwing out there. It stands for customer experience. Basically, how happy are your customers? Do you give your customers the easy button to communicate with you? That's all it means. And we can put metrics and goals and markers and NPS on that, but really what it means is if your customer needs something from you, will they recommend you to their friends? Like, oh, I had an issue with this product. I called, Billy Bob's widgets and they were fantastic, right? So there's three topics that we always like to talk about. It's work from home, which we're going to focus on today, AI and self-service. Join us at a future webinar where we talk about AI and self-service, and then platforms and integrations. So that could be anything from Microsoft Teams to Zoom to a CRM like Salesforce Dynamics, a ticketing system like ServiceNow, Freshdesk, could be a EMR system for my healthcare workers out there, EHR system. Basically, wherever your customer data lives, that's really a customer relationship management platform. Different industries call it something different. Healthcare calls it a practice management system. But in the end, it's where your customer data lives and how do you integrate to that? So the one platform we're going to focus on today is Teams. And we're going to talk about that work from home. So what does that look like, Doug? Okay, you can skip one.
Oh, did I skip one?
Oh, just keep going. The other way. Yeah, yep, perfect. So I find this interesting, and this was taken at the quote unquote height of COVID about 9 months ago, right? I think we're still climbing that mountain, unfortunately. But you can see the difference between kind of where people were working in 2019 and where people were working in 2021. It's a marked difference. And as we go forward, when Doug and I talk to clients, our first question is, what's your work from home or hybrid policy? Are people coming in the office? Are they staying home? We talked to one customer, it was fantastic. They're like, yeah, we have a work at work Wednesday policy. I'm like, that's genius, right? Force everybody come in, buy everybody breakfast, buy everybody lunch, get back together in that, kind of like, party like it was 2019, right? Work like it was 2019. So they're really letting their staff, kind of do that hybrid model. Now, the benefit of this hybrid model is now, in order to get talent, because this is the era of the resignation, right? I've been reading about this. Now to get a talent pool, you don't have to kind of do a 25-mile radius around Pittsburgh. Now it's a 2,500-mile radius around Pittsburgh, and you just pull in the best talent because you want people to work from home. You want the best talent. You want to keep them long term. But the hard part is, how do you communicate with them? How do they communicate with your clients? How do you keep everybody together, right? And that's where this thing where teams really kind of came into play. Doug?
Yeah. Excellent. No, I agree with you, Mike. Just to add to what you're saying, it's tough. Everybody working from home. How do you ensure that that they're at the task at hand, and
Yeah.
also how do you ensure that they're okay at home? Are you collaborating with them with the right way? Are they taking care of your customers with the technology that you have in place? So that's a good point you brought up.
Yeah, and that's really where kind of platforms like Teams and Slack and Salesforce and on, right? We've been bombarded by those commercials. But Teams really took off during this time, right? It was a thing through Microsoft, but honestly, we went from an alpha stage with Teams to full-on production with Teams in a matter of months. They went from an average of monthly users 75 million kind of pre-pandemic to over 250 million active users. This was taken about 6 months ago. Again, we at kind of the height of things. What I find fascinating is the size of organizations using Teams. There's 124 organizations that now have more than 100,000 users using Teams and collaborating with Teams. And more than 3,000 have more than 10,000 users. So it's for a small business because it comes kind of with those, Office 365 licenses, and it's for these big mammoth mega corporations. It's the same product, which is what I like about it, right? There's no small, medium, large, or super large where you can't afford it size, right? It's one size fits all, and you just kind of, purchase number of users you need. Here's a very telling sign how Microsoft is all in on Teams. If you've upgraded to Windows 11 yet, they put actually a Teams chat button right in the Windows taskbar, right? So now it's not only part of Office 365 and those productivity tools, now it's part of the operating system of Windows. It's, they've always been wonderful marketers, but this is just next level stuff. Doug?
Well, while we look at this other pool Melissa launched, I had a question that kind of popped up in my mind. You said that there's an icon now for Microsoft Teams. What kind of license do the customers need to have, or businesses need to have to utilize that? Does it come automatically when they open up their laptops, or is this a subscription that they have to pay for?
Yeah, so Teams is part of the Office 365 licensing. Now, that's for the basic usage within Teams, right? The internal chat, the webinar, the web-based webinar. And I think once we close this poll out, we're going to run a screen that shows some of the other licenses that are optional. All right.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure. So, all right, great. All right, perfect. Close that out. So basically, Microsoft has roughly 4 different licenses. It's a E1, E3, E5, and this new one called an F3, which they've rebranded from like their small business license. And each one, as you would imagine, one costs more as you go higher. So an E5 costs more than an E1, that makes sense, but you also get a much richer experience. We're not gonna talk about the differences of teams. That's what Google, of the licenses, that's what Google is for. I'll let you guys do that on your own. But let's talk about what you need to enable voice within Teams. So basically, you can voice enable your Teams client, and that adds an internal and external voice calling platform within the Teams interface. It really complements and add that next level to that full collaboration suite. Without voice, you can chat internal people. Hey, Doug, where's that TPI report, right? And you can start a video meeting. Hey, Keith, I want to share my desktop, show you what I'm working from a marketing point of view, right? And there's links to OneDrive and things like that. But you can't really talk to your customer and you can't really talk to Doug. So that's where voice enabling Teams comes in. It basically becomes your phone system. Now, a couple of things that are super important. If you have an E5 license, which is the Mac Daddy license, right? You get everything, right? You get what they call the third-party PBX license, which is basically the phone system license, and you get the audio conferencing license. So when you're in Teams, right, and you send out a link, click here for Microsoft Teams, you notice it doesn't have a dial-in number. Yeah, I noticed that, Mike. That's interesting. You point that out. Thanks. What you need is to pay an extra $4 a month to get a set of dial-in phone numbers. So that dial-in number doesn't come by default. So next time you're on a Teams call, right, you get the link. Look, there's probably not going to be a phone number. It just click. That's what Teams does for you. Okay. So if you have anything but the E5 and you want to voice enable your Teams experience, you need 2 licenses. You need the third-party PBX license from Microsoft, $8, and we strongly recommend the audio conferencing license, $4. So now you have $12 more into the game, and you get a phone system, right, Doug? No, not quite yet. So right now you have the foundation of a phone system, and you have an icon that says make a phone call, but if you hit that, nothing's going to happen. Because now we have to get what we call direct routing, right? Direct routing means I need to align my Teams interface with a carrier, right? And so what does that look like? Doug? Okay, so you have to align with a carrier. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here on this, and you might think like, they must all be the same. They are and they aren't, right? They are in the fact that it's going to voice enable. You buy that, spend the $12, it'll voice enable Teams, and then these people will be your carrier to make and take phone calls. But how they do it is different. One, how they add redundancy is different. Two, how they add features to the core Teams, because remember, Teams, if Teams is your phone system, the only features you get is what Microsoft say you should get, right? So there's some different techniques, and we're going to kind of hit all of them today. So you can go direct with Microsoft. That's called a Microsoft calling plan. Then you have these native to Microsoft direct routers. These tend to be like Microsoft Gold partners that embed their connectivity right into Microsoft Azure, where kind of Teams lives and all that lives. There's some benefits to that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then there's these UCaaS suppliers. Remember what that was? Unified Communications as a Service, phone system in the cloud that you pay for monthly. That what they say is, listen, we got this really robust platform and we have this really great GUI, but if you want, we can put our GUI or our connectivity in Teams if you want. We can certainly do that. And one of the ways they do it is they use this third-party product called Call to Teams. Honestly, it's probably the only time you'll ever hear anybody talk about Call to Teams is on today's broadcast. But I thought it would be important for you to understand why some people would do that versus a different technique. And the last one is Operator Connect. So Operator Connect, we're going to talk about right now. We're not going to talk about it again. what Microsoft has decided to do is go out in the marketplace and find 12 to 20 really strong direct routing partners and embed links to them in their Teams interface. So if you want to enable the phone system, you pay the $12 for those licenses, and then you can hit a drop down that says, I want to go with Lumen, I want to go with Intrado, I want to go with SCB, I want to go with AT&T, I want to go with this person I never heard of before. The idea is they're trying to give you the easy button to enable calling. Sounds awesome, doesn't it? Yeah, they've been talking about this for 2 years now, and it's still not out. So because it's not GA and it's still market texture, as we like to call it, it's when it comes out, you guys will be the first to know. But we're not gonna talk about that any more than we are today. Doug? So the first way you can go is you can go direct with Microsoft, right? And there's the price. So you got to pay $12 for the licenses if you don't have E5, and then it's $12 a month for a domestic calling plan. But if you have a client overseas, you have sites overseas, then it's double that for $24. Sounds great, right? Yeah, but there's some drawbacks here, right? Like everything Microsoft related, they're going to expect you guys to do all the heavy lifting. What does that mean? That means the administration has done something called PowerShell, and I've pasted a couple of the easier screens within PowerShell in this slide. So as you can see, it's all kind of WYSIWYG, it's ASCII based. You really got to know what you're doing. One. Two, you own 100 phone numbers, right? So you need to port those phone numbers over to Microsoft. Well, you have to do that yourself. Have you ever ported numbers before? Doug, super easy process. Carriers are easy to work with reporting, right?
Oh, yeah.
Keith is laughing because for 30 years, he's been battling those guys on how to port numbers. It's very challenging. That's why you work with experts like Doug and Keith and don't do it yourself.
I was going to say that's why businesses like ours exist, because that's really
Exactly.
easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, and so the other thing about Microsoft, they're not a true carrier, right? So you port the numbers, but then there's going to be finger pointing if it doesn't sound right or if they don't port right. They're not a true carrier. They own the desktop. Give unto Caesar what's Caesar's, right? Give unto Microsoft what's Microsoft. Let them own the desktop. The last couple things, there's no redundancy built in. So if Teams has an issue, not saying that they do, but every once in a while, there's no redundancy, so you're down. Right? And then if you have an issue, you have to call into Microsoft support. Google, what's the average wait time for Microsoft support? I've seen anything from 57 minutes to 4 hours. So, okay, all right, Mike, I guess what you're trying to tell me is probably not the path to go. Okay, good. Got my point across. Doug? So the second option is what I call a native direct routing option. So these are the people who are Microsoft Gold partners, which means they live and breathe in Microsoft. They are Microsoft experts from a licensing, from a technology, deployment, administration point of view. And what they've done is they've hosted their system into Azure. So that way Teams takes a very natural path to Azure because that's how it normally goes. The second thing that they've done is they've taken that whole scary PowerShell thing out of the picture, and they've created their own GUI, administrative GUI, that will work with PowerShell to make the changes, but it's not you in PowerShell, it's you in their GUI, and then their GUI does all the changes on the back end. So the administration becomes incredibly easy. In fact, we have one supplier who we work with whose GUI is so amazing that Microsoft is thinking about licensing that as their new PowerShell GUI. So this is the quality of supplier that we work with every day. The other thing here is they add in redundancy features. Some are super basic, like, oh, if Teams is down, I'll forward to your cell phone. Or others are like, oh, if Teams are down, we actually have a backup phone system, and you can just kind of launch our little GUI, and you'll still make and take phone calls, just not within Teams, but your customer can still reach you. Who uses this route is if you are all in on Teams. Hey, listen, Doug, we are all in on Teams. I want every user in my company to live and breathe in Teams for everything. This is the way to go. It's a great, great choice for you. all right, maybe I'm not gonna be quite all in, or maybe, I'm not comfortable with some of these names. I haven't heard of them before. What's another option for me? Well, that's a good question. So the other, and Melissa, please stop me if there's any questions that come up in the chat, please. The next option, Doug, is our traditional UCaaS friends, right? So Unified Communication as a Service, phone system in the cloud, paid for on a subscription basis. They have spent millions of dollars perfecting their PBX in the cloud, right? They have super strong network. They have an awesome GUI. They have a gazillion features, and it's a really great platform. And then Teams came along, and what they heard from their customers, like, yeah, we kind of like your platform. It looks really great, but honestly, most of our users just want to use Teams. Do you have that as an option? And so all these great companies said, okay, well, let's work with Teams, right? So the first group, the native group, they work with Teams because they want to work with Teams. This group is, we work with Teams because we sort of have to work with it. I'm not saying they do a bad job. They do a really great job, and they put a lot of money into this, but it's not their primary interface for you to use. So what these folks do is, in the Teams client, they'll put either their own icon there. So when you want to make a phone call, you click their icon and you hit, I want to call Doug, whatever Doug number is, and it goes out their network. So they're the phone company. They're the ones that you'll be paying the monthly subscription to. So you got to pay the $12 a month to Microsoft, give unto Caesar, and then you have to pay the per seat cost for these guys. Same thing with the native routers, by the way. They have a per seat cost as well. Sometimes it's a little cheaper per seat cost with the native routers because they don't have the level of redundancy and they don't have the breadth of a feature set. And unlike the UCaaS, they can't say, okay, well, this group goes to works in Teams because they're happy with that, but this group, they want a really rich phone system experience and they want to be able to SMS their customers. Did I mention that Microsoft Teams doesn't offer SMS? Some of the UCaaS providers add that in, some of the native providers add it in, but it's not native to Microsoft. Why? Microsoft is not a carrier. Go back to what I said earlier, right? So anything phone or text related, not really their thing. They like the desktop. So they like desktop to desktop things. They're not really a huge fan of hitting the public switch telephone network, PSTN, and making those calls or making those texts. And then these folks, they can do it a couple of different ways. They have their native icon. They have a plugin icon, or they do something called a soft phone cross launch, which I don't know, sounds like a new TV show, right, or a new video game. But basically what that means is when I click dial in Teams, their soft phone actually pops up. And you actually see it. It's kind of like it just kind of pops right up. You're like, oh, where'd that come from? It pops up, and then and you use that for the call control. Is that bad? No, it's a thing, right? It's how they decide to integrate with Teams. What I like about this is they offer more features, they offer better, easier redundancy, they offer a higher SLA, and these networks are rock solid. So if Teams ever has an issue, you get that business continuity going right away. All right, now some of these will be native and some will use something called Call to Teams. Doug? So Call to Teams is a third-party plugin, and what they've said is, listen, UCaaS suppliers, here's the deal. You can be like Dialpad and 8x8, some really awesome UCaaS providers. You can be like them and do your own thing and build it yourself, and good for you, right? Or you can come to us. We've already have that Teams voice integration. We already have some extra features built into it. Why not just integrate to us? Customer has no idea. Customer frankly doesn't care. As long as it works, come to us and you can go to market faster. So the predominant number of UCaaS users use this thing called Call to Teams. You can't buy it. I can't buy it. It's an integration point. The benefit is it had the ability to get the UCaaS suppliers up quickly into the Teams environment versus having to wait to kind of build their own and test it out, whatnot.
Hey, Mike, I have a couple questions in
Oh
the
boy.
chat. Okay, so one, since this is your slide deck, they're asking if the deck will be sent over to them. If you give us,
It's
okay,
nothing
so then we'll
proprietary.
just send it out.
Yep,
And
nothing
then the second
proprietary.
one is, if we paid Mitel for team integration, should this give us the dial-in option?
No, the Teams dial-in option for like a Teams webinar, a dial-in phone number.
So, yeah, it came in from Chris in the audience. Let me see if I can unmute him. But I think his question is, if we paid Mitel for Teams integration, should this give us the dial-in option?
No. So the dial-in option for Teams webinar, Teams meeting, that's that $4 audio conferencing license you have to pay to Microsoft. So even if you have an E3 license or E1 license, you go to Mitel says, oh, we'll take great care of you, we'll put you right in Teams. You still got to pay that $8 license, right? That's the first one. That gives you the foundation to make and take phone calls. And then after that, Mitel said, you're going to pay us whatever, $20 a month per user, and we'll take our little icon and put it right within Teams, so that way Teams can go in and out. So the answer is no, because they're mutually exclusive. What Mitel is doing is on the phone system side only. What WebEx, what Teams is doing is for the meeting, that's completely separate, and that's what that license is for. That
Is that with
audio
any
conferencing.
carrier? Same thing?
Yeah, any carrier is the same thing. So if you want a dial-in phone number in Teams, you got to pay the $4 license to Teams. That's why I started with, you need this $8 one, and I always recommend the $4 one for dial-in numbers. It's not mandatory to make the phone system part work, but it's something that people are like, yeah, I'm curious, how come I don't have a dial-in phone number, right? Because I've been on a lot of calls before where people are like, hey, I'm calling in from my cell and I don't really have data network. How do I call in? So it's a great question.
So to get that option, they would have to pay the $4 per user for Microsoft Teams?
$4 for anyone who wants that option. Yeah. Yeah, on top of your normal O365 license. Now, what's great is, Doug and team, we work with quite a few, what they call CSPs. Oh my gosh. So many acronyms, so many TLAs today, Doug, 3-letter acronyms, right? So a CSP is a cloud service provider. Basically, that's who you buy your Microsoft licensing from. So if you're happy with them, go to them for the $4 license. If you're like, maybe there's somebody out better, Doug and team have access to that. Now, if you go to Doug and say, Doug, I'm paying $4, can you get it for me for $3.50? The answer is going to be no. It's $4. It's like, you go to the car dealer and the car costs 20 grand and you can haggle them down to about 17. No, in Microsoft world, it's $4. Not $3.99. It's not $3.98. It's $4. All right, cool. Doug. All right, so there's this new phone app kind of floating around. Now, it's not available through everyone. Certain suppliers that are in our portfolio have access to this new Call to Teams phone app. Now, I gotta say, marketing geniuses over there, Keith, they call their phone app. Awesome. Melissa, you paying attention to that? So anyway, it's called phone app, and I make fun of it every time. But what it is it bypasses the $8 Microsoft license, and you still get a phone system. Like, ooh, that's awesome. I don't have to pay the extra $8 plus the license from Mitel for the Teams user. Sign me up. Okay, let's slow down. It's really one, it's limited. Not everybody carries it. 2, it's really for a low usage user, like a common area phone, or somebody who really doesn't make a lot of phone calls. There's some serious drawbacks to it. Excuse me, the first drawback is your name will not be in the auto attendant entry by default. At the tone, type in who you want to call last name, Hogue, right? That your name won't be in there. Now, some suppliers can kind of jerry rig it and get it in there, but by default, it's not there. The other thing is there's no like ring group or hunt group or any type of ACD, right? Automatic call distribution, call center. There's none of that. So again, it's good for like lobby phone, common area phones. There's no click to call from Outlook, which is a big thing. You go into Outlook contact, you want to call somebody, you just click on the contact. That doesn't exist. And then it really doesn't have any conferencing. So I can't, Doug and I can't be on a call and conference in Keith, right? It doesn't have that capability. And then the actual experience is kind of weird in that I click on Doug, and I call Doug, and all of a sudden I get this pop-up. Remember that soft phone cross launch we talked about? It pops up and it says, oh, by the way, you have to kind of answer me again to make that call. All right, so the experience is not great. Why do I bring this up? Because there are some users out there who are like, listen, I make 3 phone calls a day, right? I'm in the warehouse. I'm not really calling anyone. I don't need to spend the $8 on me. If there's a way to minimize the cost for my license, let's figure it out. So come to us. Like I said, not everybody does it. Don't go to whomever and say, hey, I want the new phone app. And they're like, oh, great, you want our native phone app? Perfect. That's $20 a license, right? So the only reason I bring it up. Doug, I think we're in the home stretch here.
Yeah, they were coming down to a few more slides.
Okay, so contact center, right? Call center, contact center. By default, Teams has a basic ring group, hunt group functionality, super basic. But if you need more than that, what you'll hear is, okay, do you want a contact center that's integrated into Teams, or do you want a contact center that's integrated with Teams? All right, very subtle difference, but really big difference in the subtle difference in the language, big difference in functionality. Integrated into Teams means that my contact center analytics and agent experience and supervisor experience is built into the team GUI. You see that with the top picture there. Okay. To my knowledge, there is only 2 people. I could be wrong. 2 main people who do this. Doug and I, our teams have access to both types, but that's one way to do it. And it's really only done, honestly, by those native to Teams people. Remember the people who are the gold partners and they're built into Azure. The second is integrated with Teams. Okay, what does that mean? That means that the contact center is going to be in their own window, in their own URL. It's going to be super feature rich. It's going to be awesome and work great. And how they integrate with Teams is usually if I have to transfer a call from an agent to a non-agent, I hit the transfer and I can get a little pop-up window that shows me everybody in my organization via Teams to see who's in or out. Well, I need to transfer this to Mary. I see Mary's red. Hey, looks like Mary's on the phone right now. We're not available. You'll probably end up getting her voicemail. Leave her a message. I'll go ahead and I'll Teams message her to check her voicemail when she gets in. Okay, so we can go all in with Teams, or we can work within Teams from a presence point of view. It's really up to you and your contact center leaders what works best. I will say it's at this point it's the 95-5 rule. 95% of my clients integrate with Teams, and I've only really had 1 or 2 clients who want to integrate into Teams. Does that mean it's not as good? I'll let you decide that, but I will say you got to be all in on Teams. And let's kind of wrap up with that thought, Doug. So, kind of what path should you take? So I did some Googling for you, saved you a lot of time. And I Googled what's the best phone system, and I only got 5.5 billion hits. I'm like, well, that's a lot of web clicks. So I'm like, how about best cloud phone system? Cut that in half to 2.5 billion hits. Now I'm working, right? I'm like, okay, all right. Best MS Teams phone system, and that was 850 million hits. So as you can see, that's a lot of your time figuring out what's the best path for you, Doug. So what we've done is in our ecosystem, we have about 63 vetted, trusted suppliers. They have the best uptime in the industry, if a supplier is down often, they don't make it on this slide. If a supplier misbills too often, they don't make it on this slide. So we've narrowed it down to 63. So when you come to us, we're going to put the 63 in a hat, and we're going to use our matrices that we have to bring you the best 3 to 5 that fits your needs. Some you will have heard of, right? Ring Central, heard of them. 8x8, heard of them. Dialpad, absolutely heard of them. Some you may not have heard of. Scipio, it's a fun word. What do they do, right? Intelligent IP, okay, clever name. What do they do? Well, they're both really awesome at being native to teams, and it's people like that that Doug and I work with on a daily, sometimes hourly basis to make sure we understand what they offer, what the pros are, what the, I don't want to call them cons, but areas of improvement they have, to make sure when we bring you suppliers that they are the right ones for you. No two customers are alike. We're not the type that just goes to the Gartner Magic Quadrant and brings it down the top 4 people. You can do that yourself, right? You can Google Gartner Magic Quadrant. You can find the top 4. That doesn't give you any value, right? Because that's telling you how good their marketing is and how big a company they are. What we do is we understand the feature set. That includes how easy is it to deploy, what's the training look like, what does tech support look like. So we take it to that level. Doug? All right, so pretty much the last slide here. Which path is right for you, right? Do you go direct to Microsoft? Maybe. Again, the value there is, it's easy to procure. It's just a couple of clicks. The hard part is it was easy to procure. It's hard to install, right? And it's hard to support. So the easy part, like I always tell my girls, right, is the easy part's paying for it. The hard part is taking care of it. So that's really what that looks like. So what about the native path? The native path, really strong companies, Microsoft Gold partners, Microsoft Forward can help you with your Microsoft licensing, can help you everything with Microsoft. However, you have to be all in, right? If there's a part of the company that you've heard from, like, hey, Doug, do I really have to use Teams? I can't launch it from my phone really easily. I can't do this, and that. Then it might not be right for you. What might be right is to go the UCaaS direct routing, where these are super strong providers. They do really great work, and they have a really solid network with redundancy everywhere. And the value that they bring is this group does non-Teams and have a great, rich PBX experience. This group does Teams, yet they still talk to each other. Or you say, Mike, we're thinking about not using Teams anymore and maybe going to something else. Great. Then we'll go back to the 63 people, look to see who's the best fit for you in their native interface, who has the best mobile app, right? Who has the best desktop app? Who works best in Gmail, right? Who works best in Office 365? Who integrates best with HubSpot or Salesforce or some CRM I never heard of? We gather all that data, put it in the machine, and bring you the best of breed suppliers. Because what do we do, Doug? The big reveal, Doug.
What's that? Oh, next one. Sorry about that.
We are experts in your business. Oh, this is the most important slide. I can't believe you made us wait for it. But this great group, this great group of people have saved their partners, right? You're not a client, you're not a customer, you're a partner of theirs. And they've saved millions from utility to telecom to the whole stack. So I'm just a small cog in their big wheel, but happy to talk to you about what path is right for you. Doug, turn it back over.
Great job, Mike, as always. And we've done this webinar a few times for customers. It is a very hot topic. We'll do it again for you. Anybody else in your companies, just keep in mind that these services are here. We have experts to bring to the table. The selection process of getting some of these carriers in there, could be a daunting task to some. You might want to just look at the nice shiny object, the first one that has a Google ad, and pick them. Sometimes money and marketing isn't everything, and that's what we like to keep out of all this, and show you who works the best in different industries. So Mike, thank you very much for that for that demo for as you put on for us today. It's not every day you get to watch a demo that's not a carrier putting it on, so we're completely unbiased. We'll help you select the right carriers for everything, whatever your needs may be, whether it's Microsoft Teams integrations with unified communications, or if you're looking for contact center, cloud, Internet of Things, we have it all. We're a one-stop shop for all that, and instead of one throat to choke, one shoulder to hug. And then for anybody else that was interested, we did offer to do a free telecommunications and utility bill audit for sitting in our demo today. So contact us at, you can give me a call or contact, Cloud Solutions at ericryan.com. Let us know. We'll get all the information over to you that we need to fulfill the bill audit for you guys. Before I close out, I want to give the opportunity to our CEO, Mr. Keith Venezzi, to say any last words.
No, I think you both covered it very, very well. And I want to again thank everybody for attending. There's not really much more I can say that Doug hasn't already said and Mike hasn't presented. So thank you all for coming on. I guess at this point, are we doing anything beyond this, Doug?
Oh yeah, we'll be, this was the last for the PowerPoint, but there'll be, each month we plan to do a webinar like this. We'll pick different topics. You'll receive invites out, especially for being on. So, thank you for your time today. And, we hope to have you again in the next ones coming. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.